Where's my DJ?
Put that camera on me.
Can't believe what I just heard.
Are you good or bad at what you're doing? You're terrible. You're the worst.
Something is wrong with you.
This is the definition of player
Thursday,
hating.
the best show on television.
Stop right there. He's the best.
Definitely co-sign that sentiment.
Thanks for tuning in to First Take.
Start the damn show.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into First Take, and look who is back. Max Kellerman in the flesh. Good to see you. Stephen A. Smith, I'm Molly Karam Rose. Guys, NBA's in full swing. Let's get after it. The Lakers were in action last night. They got their first convincing win of the restart, taking down the Jazz by 8. The Lakers clinched the division title in top seed in the West for first time in a decade, ending their 5-year playoff drought. Anthony Davis put up 42, 12, and 14. AD, talk to me.
We just reached one of our milestones. No one knew before the game, like players-wise. We never talked about it, but to do something like that, it's been a long time coming for the Laker Nation. And we just go out there and try to play. We're trying to be the best version of the team that we can be. And like I said, it's a good feeling. Obviously we're not done. We still got a long way to go, but it's a good accomplishment for our organization.
Stephen A., you still worried about those Lakers?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Number one, because that number one seed means absolutely nothing because it's to ensure home court advantage, and obviously because of the situation involving a global pandemic and the fact that they've got a bubble in Orlando, there is no home court advantage. That's number one. Number two, Avery Bradley, I got to give props to my man Jalen Rose that mentioned this weeks ago when Avery Bradley first signed off by saying that, he wasn't going to join the Lakers in the bubble because he's got a 6-year-old with respiratory issues that he was very, very concerned about and elected not to join the team. So as a result, you've got an elite on-ball defender that's gone from you. Rondo goes down hurt. He's out. And then I'm looking at the rest of these guys right now. And from a defensive perspective, in terms of their size on the front line and the interior, the Lakers obviously are formidable. But I watched Donovan Mitchell, even though he didn't shoot that great en route to scoring 33 points last night, he was able to get where he wanted when he wanted. And I'm thinking about a team like the Los Angeles Clippers. I'm thinking about a team like the Houston Rockets. And I'm like, what are you going to do to defend against those guys? Alex Caruso and Dion Waiters, who I like, and others. That's not going to get it done against those teams. So I do have reasons for concern. And last but not least, I look at a guy like Anthony Davis, who's clearly been the best Laker thus far since the return, even though LeBron's been doing his thing as well. But him being aggressive, getting to the free throw line for 15 free throw attempts last night, it's not about the points that he scores, it's how he does it. If he maintains that level of aggression, that's going to offset some of the things that the opposition is going to throw his way once competition intensifies. But the question is he going to be able to be as aggressive going to the basket against those other teams as he was last night against Utah, particularly against the Los Angeles Clippers? I'm not so sure about that. So again, I haven't jumped off the bandwagon, but I'm very, very, very concerned for the Los Angeles Lakers because I think LeBron and AD are going to be who they are. I don't know if that's going to be enough. Somebody else is going to have to step up. And I'm looking for that other person, Max, and I haven't seen it as of yet. Again, it's early. They were gone for 4.5 months or so. They're just warming up. We'll see. But I haven't seen that person yet.
You don't have to worry about the Lakers getting to the Western Conference Finals. I mean, more than you have to worry about any team in a given year who's supposed to be elite getting to the conference finals. There can always be an upset, but I think the Lakers are going to get there because they have two of the best half-dozen players in the world on the same team. And let's not start making excuses in advance for the Lakers. They ain't going to beat the Clippers. And they ain't going to beat the Clippers. Not only, I said this originally when it happened because the Clippers basically parachuted the best player in the world in Kawhi Leonard and another guy who was in the MVP hunt before he got hurt, Paul George, onto a 48-win team. LeBron and AD are on a team that has to really build up from nothing because LeBron got hurt before the playoffs last year, right? So they didn't make the playoffs. So the Lakers are an excellent powerhouse team. There's no doubt about that. Clippers are just better. They're better constructed, and they have Kawhi Leonard. But I want to talk about the Lakers right now. Anthony Davis, you see, when you have a two-way four, Guy who can play on both ends of the floor, who's also a shot blocker, a shot blocking two-way four. That's when you talk about the greatest power forwards of all time, and you know, respect to Charles Barkley and Karl Malone, but the reason they're power forwards is because they can't take wings off the dribble consistently. Really wrong. Otherwise, they'd be wings. And the reason they're not centers is because they're not rim protectors, right? But when you look at the best who ever did it, and again, apologies to say Kevin Garnett, but I think obviously that guy is Tim Duncan. Anthony Davis is the first guy to come along. You say, that guy could challenge Tim Duncan as the best who ever did it at the position. He is so dominant both ends of the floor. His offense has been superb, but his defense has been bananas. You know, and if you have that guy on your team playing the big, whatever you want to call that, the 4 or the 5, and you have LeBron James basically playing the point guard, you're going to beat the Utahs and Denvers of the world. That's what the history of the NBA says. You're going to fall to the team with the best two-way wings in their primes, Kawhi and Paul George, but they're going to beat everybody else, Stephen A.
Well, listen, here's the thing. We can talk about excuses all we want to, but the reality of the situation is let's rewind the clock a little bit. Even with the Clippers assembling who they assembled, to use your words, parachuting in 2 of the best players in the world on a 48-win team, I still pick the Lakers, and here's why. Because when you looked at Avery Bradley with a Rondo, with a LeBron, with an Anthony Davis, and some of the supplementary parts, my attitude is that if you're the Clippers, first of all, you know chemistry is going to be an issue because you're going to engage in load management with Kawhi. I'm talking about what our thoughts were at the beginning of the season. You're going to engage in load management as it pertains to Kawhi. Paul George had his surgery. He had to reacclimate himself into things. They weren't going to be on the floor, but so much. Then you had to concern yourself with too many basketballs because of the other pieces that they acquired. Montrezl Harrell looking for a new contract, et cetera, et cetera. All of these things factored into the equation. So you thought about it, and you said, the Lakers match up pretty well with the Clippers, just like the Clippers match up pretty well with them. It's going to come down to who has a better regular season, who has home court advantage, even though they're both in L.A. We'll see where that goes. I still put my money on LeBron and AD under those circumstances. What has happened because of the bubble is that you no longer have to concern yourself with load management with Kawhi Leonard because you've been going for 4.5 months. There's only 8 regular seasons games to go before the playoffs begin. If you remember last year, even though he only played 60 of the 82 games, time, he averaged 39 minutes per game. He led everybody in minutes played in the postseason last year. So we know what he's getting geared for, and you don't have to worry about load management. Plus that time allotted Paul George to get fully healthy, et cetera, et cetera. And then you combine that with 2 of your guards for the Lakers being gone, the onus being placed on LeBron James. Then you look at a team like Houston. Maybe they play the Clippers in the second round. Maybe they play the Lakers. We don't know as of yet. We'll see how that pans out. But you're looking at Russell Westbrook suddenly veer away from attempting 3-pointers, and he's attacking the basket with fervor. He's kicking it out to open shooters. Mike D'Antoni changed because they traded Clint Capella. They've gone small. They got Covington in that lineup. They got Gerald Green back with Harden, with Westbrook, with House, and all of these boys. And all of a sudden, Houston is a completely different team than they were at the beginning of the season. So it's not about an excuse is all I'm trying to say, Max. We're allowed to sit up there and look at the changes that took place because of the pandemic and modify our thinking to some degree. That's why I say I'm concerned.
But look, if coming back to the bubble, the Clippers were missing Patrick Beverley and someone else, I would also say, wait a minute, it was close between the Lakers and the Clippers, and this could tip the scales. But one of my thought process, my reasoning, why one of them, several, that I like the Clippers over the Lakers. I'm going to keep it to Clippers and Lakers right now. We know the Rockets have a puncher's chance better this season, as they normally do. But the Lakers, you look at the way they're assembled, and I think next year they'll have a better chance than this year. Because usually when you put those stars together, you have to use so many resources that you can't get the details right. They lucked up.
He averaged 39 minutes per game. he led everybody in minutes played in the postseason last year. So we know what he's getting geared for, and you don't have to worry about load management. Plus that time allotted Paul George to get fully healthy, et cetera, et cetera. And then you combine that with two of your guards for the Lakers being gone, the
office with Dwight Howard and Avery Bradley, right? But the Lakers were going to rely on the chemistry being just right, on LeBron getting the team firing on all cylinders just at the right time. Whereas what teams really do well in the playoffs traditionally, those ISO half-court teams like the Clippers with superstars on two wing players who play in that style team, that half-court ISO and we're going to defend the wings team. That's traditionally the quickest kind of formula. The one that relies least on chemistry, that's what the Clippers have.
Fair enough. All right, the Lakers play the Thunder on Wednesday, and then they play the Rockets on Thursday. First take just getting started, though, fellas. We got a little NFL to dive into here. Odell Beckham Jr. not holding back. Wait till you hear his recent comments and what they should mean to the NFL. Back in a moment.